Welcome into another edition of the DFS Report. It is Friday, January the 17th. Happy Friday to everybody out there. Hopefully you had a good week of work and you're ready to close the week out with a takedown this evening. We got a small little 2-game slate to end things today. I believe tomorrow is hockey day in Canada, so that's why we've got a massive 15-game slate tomorrow. So small slate today, leading into tomorrow's massive one. But yeah, we kind of a shitty week for DFS, right? You've got 13 games one day, 2 games the next. It's a bit unfortunate. Hopefully we get back into the swing of kind of normalcy next week. But 2 at least exciting looking games tonight as the Carolina Hurricanes host the Vegas Golden Knights and the Buffalo Sabres host the Pittsburgh Penguins. Both games start at 7 p.m. Eastern, so there will be kind of no secrets, no unknowns in terms of the lineups. You'll be able to tweak everything before lock and be able to just sit back and enjoy some good hockey, hopefully, and hopefully win some money tonight. Just a reminder, if you want a chance at a $50 gift card to nationgear.ca where you can pick up some DFO swag, maybe Oilers Nation if that's your thing, all you got to do today is drop a comment in the live chat during today's show. You'll be automatically entered into the draw. We will throw everybody's name into a random wheel at the end of the show and pick a winner. We'll get you a $50 gift card. So as long as you've posted a comment during the live show today in the live chat on YouTube, we will get you a chance to win that prize. Let's get started with the goalies. Got Petr Kochetkov confirmed to get the nod for the Carolina Hurricanes. Vegas Golden Knights unconfirmed, but we're expecting to see Aiden Hill. Ilya Samsonov got the start in their last game, so really should be no surprises there. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen gets the nod for the Buffalo Sabres. It will be Alex Nedeljkovic for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Those are your 4 starting goalies tonight. This seems we were talking about this before the show, Zach. You don't have a daily Faceoff hat yet, so if you end up being our winner today, at least maybe you can pick one up and start supporting the brand here. So
no, that's okay. I'll shell out some of my own hard-earned money. Somebody else can win it.
There you go. And yeah, let's get into today's slate. We've got the Carolina Hurricanes and Vegas Golden Knights up first. The Hurricanes pretty sizable home favorites here against the Golden Knights, -157, +142 for the Vegas Golden Knights. 3.3 implied total for the Hurricanes, 2.6 for the Vegas Golden Knights. In terms of the matchups in this one, the Carolina Hurricanes match up harder than any team, or stricter, I guess, than any team in the league. Going to see a lot of Jordan Staal's line up against that Jack Eichel line tonight. Going to see a lot of Sebastian Aho's line up against the Tomas Hertl line, and then you're going to see a lot of the Kotkaniemi line against the William Karlsson line, and then the fourth lines will go head to head. So the way things boil out with those matchups is that the second line for the Vegas Golden Knights, which is a line that I play a lot, a line that went off in their most recent game as well, is got the best matchup by a wide margin on this slate. So Vegas 2 looks pretty interesting. The underlying metrics, though, not super strong, but they go up against a Sebastian Aho line that has given up plenty defensively as of late. 3.0 expected goals against per 60 is not a very good mark. And then 4.7 actual goals against per 60 is obviously a terrible mark. So I talk about it pretty much every time Vegas is on a slate. I'm kind of addicted to Vegas too, and I really like them with this current configuration with Victor Olofsson and Pavel Dorofeyev with Tomas Hertl. A lot to like, a lot of shot volume on this line. You've got some PP1 exposure as well with Tomas Hertl and Pavel Dorofeyev. So there's a lot to like about this current configuration. They're really not drawing a whole lot of ownership either. I mean, it probably wasn't the best place to start overall, but, I'm addicted to Vegas too, so I kind of had to go this route. Really not seeing a ton of ownership. 5th highest on the slate, so looks like a pretty interesting spot. The field definitely is getting to Vegas 2 more than Vegas 1 as well, and that leaves Vegas 1 in kind of an interesting spot tonight, right? Like, on a 2-game slate, you're going to probably want to have exposure to them still. It is a very difficult matchup. They are our second most expensive line on the slate. Like, going up against a Jordan Staal line is not an enviable position. So, on a 2-game on a larger slate, I guess I probably would be very happy to avoid and fade Vegas 1, but on such a small slate, it does become a little bit scary. So at 10%, I think it's fairly easy to just kind of get over the field and hope for the best, but it is undoubtedly a bad matchup and not one that I would normally target outside of a 2-game slate. What are you thinking here on the Vegas side of things tonight, Zach?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm trying to bring up some numbers for how Jack Eichel's performed against Jordan Staal. I can't imagine it's very great. I mean, over the last number of years, that Jordan Staal line has been just such a great shutdown line for the Carolina Hurricanes. I think for me, like I feel fairly comfortable fading them here tonight, or this Vegas one spot at the very least. That's a really tough matchup for this group here. I think there's still reason to have some interest for sure. I think it goes without saying how talented Jack Eichel has been. Mark Stone is continuing to find ways to generate offense, largely through his point production, 3.2 points per hour over his last 20 games. But Ivan Barbashev up there feels a little bit gross at $4,100. He really hasn't done a whole lot here over his last 20 games in terms of generating offense or really having much of a floor whatsoever. He does have 1.1 goals per hour, but he's also shooting the lights out at 20%. So he's kind of been on a shooting heater all throughout the season here. So I think for me in the 5 lineups that I'm building tonight, I'm strongly considering just full fading Vegas 1 here and pivoting off of them to this Vegas 2 spot. I really like the look of this lineup and the way that it's constructed as well. You take a look at the shot volume for all 3 of these players. Pavel Doroflorev leading the way with 11.1 shots on goal per hour. Victor Florlifson with 8.2 shots per hour. And Thomas Floral with 8.3 shots on goal per hour as well. So lots of pucks going towards the net of the opposition, and it is giving all 3 of these guys a really, really great floor here. So I don't mind the spot whatsoever for Vegas 2. Obviously, the line stats and the numbers as you pull up here have kind of been a little bit gross for this trio here, but it feels like a better spot than what Vegas 1 is facing tonight.
Yeah, and Vegas 1, like with Barbashev, we talked about him. Like I faded him a ton earlier in the season when they were just scorching hot because it didn't feel super sustainable. And the numbers still suggest that, they overachieved early in the year. And you pointed it out with Barbashev's shooting percentage, personal shooting percentage, like 4.2 goals for per 60 versus just 2.4 expected goals for per 60. It's a line that's kind of overperformed. And outside of Jack Eichel, like I do feel like, Mark Stone, his salary is probably a little inflated. Barbashev's has come down, but it was inflated earlier in the year, and it just feels like paying up in a spot here against Jordan Staal's line is not an ideal situation. Do you have any interest in getting to the 3rd line here of the Vegas Golden Knights? Because again, not great underlying metrics, not really a great line like that. Super talented offensive line with Brett Howden, William Karlsson, Cole Schwindt, but like another good matchup here. Like they're going to see a lot of that second line of the Carolina Hurricanes, which is also, struggled a little bit defensively, but I just don't know if there's enough firepower on this line to really kind of break a slate open. Maybe a William Karlsson one-off if you need some, a center to round out your lineup or something like that. But overall, I agree that most of my interest is probably coming in solely on Vegas 2 here.
Yeah, I got a little bit of interest. I think Brett Howden has been a little bit better than some people maybe give him credit for as of late. Scoring a goal per hour, generating some shots, blocking a couple here and there as well. I'm not sure if I'll get down there tonight. I am building just 5 lineups tonight, and it feels like there's some other spots that I'd like to get to this evening that, come in at this similar salary range at $10,600. I think that's a bit much to full stack that line. And, the truth is that William Karlsson spent some time up there on Vegas too, and really wasn't productive whatsoever. He is doing not a whole lot out there right now in terms of generating offense. So I think personally, I'm comfortable staying off of Vegas 3, but again, you got a 2-game slate here. So, if you're, 20 maxing or 150 maxing, I'd probably be trying to get exposure to every one of these teams' top 9s in some way, shape, or form, getting little bits and pieces. So I don't entirely hate the idea of maybe some Howden one-offs at $3,300, but I think I'm probably going to stay away from them tonight.
Yeah, and I think the one way to look at this slate too, at least from my opinion, is that this game feels like the lower scoring of the 2. I feel like the other one's got a little bit more fireworks potential. Like obviously the Hurricanes and Vegas Golden Knights both have good enough offenses where this could turn into a bit of a track meet. It just doesn't seem quite as likely as the Buffalo-Pittsburgh game. And I think that'll end up getting a little bit more to the depth pieces of that other game, more so than the Vegas 3rd line in this one. And still what's not an outstanding matchup. On the Hurricane side of things, actually, before we move into the Hurricane side of things, John wants to know what 2-man stack would you pick from Vegas 2? I don't know how you feel, Zach, but I would probably do Hurdle and Dorofeyev. They've got the power play correlation on that top unit. Not a great power play matchup tonight. The power play has been really good, though. 5th best over their last 10 games. They go up against the 9th ranked PK. Hurricanes also take a fair amount of penalties at 3.0 time short handed per game. So I would go with Hurdle and Dorofeev just for the extra power play correlation. Any difference for you, Zach?
I think that's probably the smart way to go. I mean, I think the maybe get a little bit different way to go would be something like Dorofeev and Olofsson. Victor Olofsson projecting for only 2.6% tonight. Really, really low number there. So if you want to find a way to kind of get yourself different, if you're playing some Vegas too, that's not the worst way to go. But if you have some other spots in your lineup that are taking your ownership number down a little bit, then I think absolutely going with the Hurdle Dorofeev mini stack is the way to go.
Yeah, kind of hilarious to see Hurdle and Olsen basically or Hurdle and Dorofeev at 20% owned basically, and then Olsen at 2.6. It's a bit shocking, and yeah, it's going to be very easy to get over the field on a guy like Victor Olofsson in a pretty good spot here. Okay, on the Carolina side of things, again, the matchup's pretty bleak across the board. The Jordan Staal line draws, I guess, the best matchup against the Eichel line, but again, all the three of these top 9 lines here for the Vegas Golden Knights grade out very similar defensively, so not really a whole lot to glean from with the defensive metrics. On the Hurricane side of things, still not a whole lot going on for this top line, which is a little bit surprising. You'd think that Jarvis, Roslovich, and Naho would be buzzing, and it just hasn't been the case. Maybe they look worse than they actually are because the second and third lines have just been so good this year, but I feel very similarly about Carolina tonight as I did the other night against the Sabres in what was another small slate, in that I don't really like playing Carolina 2 outside of Martin Necas. I feel very comfortable still getting to Carolina 1 despite kind of underwhelming metrics overall. And then Carolina 3 is just a tremendous value option tonight. Jordan Staal back down to 8% ownership tonight. So he was kind of juiced up the other night, coming in a little hotter than he is tonight, back down to kind of more Jordan Staal-like ownership. They go as a third best line overall, and that's if you factor in the power play, which they don't see much of at all. So they definitely score a little bit more with Andrei Svechnikov on that line. They're $11,800. I'm going to be focused more on Carolina 1 and Carolina 2 than I am Carolina 1 and Carolina 3, than I am Carolina 2. It's just so hard to confidently stack Robinson, Kotkaniemi. So Netchas one-offs, I think, are still fine. It's very similar to how I'm targeting them as I did the other night. And that kind of worked, right? Like Netchas scored a goal, but there wasn't a whole lot from the kind of the rest of this line. So do you feel similarly, differently? You full stack in Carolina 2 tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to be getting to a full stack of Carolina 2. The thing is that their line stats do grade out so well, right? So I think I have some interest here, and maybe they can take advantage of this spot here. They're going to see 64% of their ice time going up against Vegas 3, who's also been a solid defensive line for the Vegas Golden Knights. It feels like it's a bit of a tough matchup, as evidenced by the low matchup scores that we're seeing pretty much entirely across the board here. Despite this being the higher paced game of the night, it feels like it's kind of going to be a slower grinding, lower scoring game with more offense coming from that second game. So, I think maybe I'd have some interest in some mini stacks of Robinson and Netchas, or Kotkaniemi and Netchas, again, just to find a way to get yourself a little bit different. But I don't think I'm going too crazy there.
Yeah, if you take a look at their last 10 games, Netchas comes in averaging 7.9 DraftKings points per game, where Kotkaniemi at just 5.1 and Robinson at just 4.0. 1.6 shots per game for Kotkaniemi, 1.4 shots per game for Robinson. Neither have much shot block volume to speak of. So just really no floor. But again, $2,800, bit of a get different spot. The underlying metrics are obviously pretty strong on a 2-game slate. If you're building 20 lineups tonight, mixing them in a little bit, I think, is fine, but I think their ceiling is pretty well capped. What are you doing with Carolina 1? Metrics are a little bit underwhelming, but they still grade out pretty well. Still seeing a healthy amount of ownership. Do you prefer them to Carolina 3, or are you running right back to the Staal line, which is about half the ownership of Carolina 1?
Yeah, I'm honestly going right back to Carolina 3 here tonight. I like the look of this line here again in this spot. Obviously, we've seen Jordan Staal and these guys being on a little bit of an offensive heater here as of late, which with Svechnikov down there, he's still generating a ton of quality looks playing with these guys on this third line. So I like this spot quite a bit here. So what's interesting is that I did look up how Jack Eichel has fared against Jordan Staal. It's an extremely small sample size since he's joined the Vegas Golden Knights of like 13 minutes. But the Jordan Staal line has actually outscored the Eichel line 2-1 in those minutes. So I don't mind going back to the well here on Carolina 3. Getting some lower ownership on a small slate like this, I think, is a good way to go. And they're probably my favorite line from this game as a whole, even more so than Vegas too. So I'll probably be pretty heavy on this Hurricanes third line and hope that they can find a way to pop off again here tonight for me.
Yeah, we talked about it a couple times recently. These are the type of slates where Carolina 3 kind of is in their prime, right? Because if they can score a couple goals in a 2-game slate, they can end up being optimal. On the bigger slates, they start to get lost in the shuffle a little bit. Who would you go with, Burns or Gostisbehere? It kind of depends who you're building around. I think if I'm building around the top line, like if I'm building around Aho and Jarvis specifically, I prefer Gostisbehere. I think that he correlates a lot better with Carolina 1 through the power play, also at 5v5. If you're going with a Carolina 3 build, I think Burns correlates better with them at 5v5. Sees a little bit more ice time with them. So that would be the kind of differentiating factor for me, just kind of depending on which line I'm stacking from the Hurricanes. Zach, do you have a preference between Gostisbehere or Burns?
No, I agree with you. I think it's just a little bit stack dependent. I think I like, maybe if I had to pick one gun to my head, probably go with Burns. Feels like he's been a little bit more solid as of late than Gostisbehere has.
Just to kind of actually give you actual numbers on that, I mean, Gostisbehere's only played 2 games in his last since in the Carolina Hurricanes last 10, but 8 shots on goal, 5 blocks for Gostisbehere has been pretty solid. Brent Burns averaging 10 DraftKings points per game over his last 10. He's been solid as well. So both have been really, really solid. Both pretty reasonable price tags, exact same price. Almost Gostisbehere 4,400, Burns 4,500 bucks. On the power play tonight, these are the 2 worst power play matchups tonight, but I still think Vegas is in an okay spot. Carolina, man, just a really, really poor power play as of late, and it's pretty surprising. It doesn't look like they're going to get many opportunities tonight either. The Vegas Golden Knights, one of the more disciplined teams in the league. So, yeah, I don't know how many Carolina power play stacks I'm going to have, but I mean, you'd have to imagine that this is a unit that is talented enough, and this is a Vegas penalty kill that's not been all that strong. So, again, I'm probably more just building around 5v5 stacks of the Carolina Hurricanes than just kind of whatever extra on the power play is kind of left over for you there. Any thoughts here on the power plays of either side before we get to game number 2?
No, nothing crazy there. I mean, I think I might try and get a little bit of power play correlation if I can, but I don't think it'll be anything too major out there.
Let's get to game number 2. We've got the Buffalo Sabres and the Pittsburgh Penguins. So if you missed it yesterday, the Pittsburgh Penguins waived Tristan Jarry, bringing up Joel Blomqvist from the AHL, but Blomqvist will serve as the backup this evening to Alex Nedeljkovic. Feel like Nedeljkovic has not played very well as of late. Let me pull up his numbers here because like every time I feel like he's in between the pipes, he's just doing nothing. Yeah, he's been quite bad. At least his last 4 starts have been pretty ugly. He has gone 1-2-1 with an 870 save percentage since December 31st. Not great. Matchups in this game. I mean, the Pittsburgh Penguins top line, Sidney Crosby, Rickard Rakell, Brian Rust, who have been red hot, are drawing the number 1 matchup score overall. Pretty good matchups across the board in this game. Like I said, I think this game is a lot more loosey-goosey than the other one. Not a whole lot of hard matching going on to really break down, but we know for sure that the Crosby line looks terrific tonight. They have the number 1 matchup score, and their underlying metrics have just been bonkers good. They play a ton. Really, really good spot for Pittsburgh one tonight. They by far and away graded as the best line overall. They are seeing the second highest ownership overall on this slate. So absolutely love Pittsburgh one at just 27% ownership and 20% for Rickard Rakell. I think it's pretty easy to get over the field here on Pittsburgh, and I feel pretty comfortable about that. This is just a really nice spot for them. I guess the only concerns that I would have is that Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, kind of the complete opposite of Alex Nedeljkovic. Luukkonen's been playing quite well as of late. He was basically shut the door on the Hurricanes the other night until late in that game. He's hit the save bonus in 2 of his last 3 games, so he's been pretty good as of late. And dating back to basically Christmas, 9-11 save percentage in his last 9 games. He's won 6 of those 9 games. So he's been solid. And that'd be kind of the only thing that scares me a little bit from Pittsburgh one, but he's not like somebody that, I'm just completely avoiding. So I love Pittsburgh one tonight, especially because it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot to like about the rest of this Pittsburgh lineup. It's kind of like Pittsburgh one or bust. I mean, none of these other 3 lines are doing anything. The Malkin line's been really quiet. I guess the one saving grace for the Malkin line is that they're just really cheap, 10,900. Michael Bunting has cooled off a little bit after going red hot for a couple of weeks on that top power play unit. 13.9% ownership tonight, $3,900. He's a decent play. Malkin at 19% ownership, 20% ownership, $4,500. I mean, he's been so bad, but his price tag has finally dropped down to a point where it's like, okay, I can just consider him. Kind of like Mika Zibanejad, right? Like this feels similar to New York 2 last night. And Riley Smith was pretty solid last night. Like they're not great, but they've gotten to a point where they probably shouldn't be this cheap either. So I'm going to be heavy on Pittsburgh 1, probably mix in some Pittsburgh 2, maybe a little bit of Pittsburgh 3. Like the matchup's not quite as good for them. They're going to see a lot more of the fourth line of the Sabres. The fourth line of the Sabres is quite good. Kevin Hayes has been fairly decent as of late as well. What are you thinking here? Is this just kind of like a mix and match of this entire roster? Kevin Hayes' last 7 games, he's got 3 goals, 19 shots on goal, averaging 8.5 DraftKings points at just $2,600 if you're considering Pittsburgh 3 tonight.
Yeah, Kevin Hayes is a one-off even at $2,600. Feels like a really solid play here tonight. Looking at his last 20 games, 1.4 goals per hour of ice time, shooting the pill a lot too, 9.8 shots on goal per hour of ice time. So that's a really nice clip right there, giving you a little floor at somebody who is, effectively minimum priced. I do agree though that I'm pretty much going to be Pittsburgh one or bust here in this game. All 3 of these guys have been red hot as of late here, all scoring just in high numbers. 3.5 points per hour for Raquel, 3.4 for Crosby, 3.3 for Rust per hour over their last 20 games. So they're all taking a good amount of shots. Crosby has lit up the Buffalo Sabres in his career, 29 goals and 85 points in 60 games. I'm going to be really heavy on the Penguins. I'll be over the field on this top line for sure. I don't mind mixing a little bit of Michael Bunting for a little bit of power play 1 correlation as well. Obviously not the best looking spot here, going up against a really good Buffalo Sabres power play. But in the same breath, small slate like this, anything can happen. And hey, Bunting has still been, very productive as of late, even though he's been held off the score sheet in 2 straight games. So I don't mind going that way whatsoever. But I think for me, like almost everything I build is probably going to have some Pittsburgh 1 in it because it just feels like they're in that great of a spot here tonight.
Love this one. Malkin is absolutely washed. Here comes the Hattie. It's probably true, right? Like, he just has done nothing. What has Malkin done? Like he's just been so quiet. You have not heard from him at all as of late.
He's basically transformed into Anze Kopitar.
Yeah, just no shot volume to even speak of. But I mean, the production's still been relatively reasonable. 2 goals only, but at 8 points in his last 10 games, 9 shots on goal during that stretch. So just no shot volume. If you go back to, what would this be? His last 14 games, he only has 12 shots on goal. Just no floor at all. So yeah, maybe here comes the hat trick, but he's got to get at least 3 shots on goal for that to become a reality. The Buffalo side, this is interesting, and I feel very similar about the Penguins, really. There's a lot of volatility with both of these teams. Both these teams seem to be very inconsistent, and you never really know. Somebody pointed out in the chat, you never really know what version you're going to get from them on a night-to-night basis. And it's true. Like I said that before their last game against the Hurricanes. I bet the Sabres because the number was so inflated, but they have massive games. Like I said, they shut out the Senators in Ottawa. Then they come home and lose 6-2 to the Seattle Kraken. And then they play an absolutely dominant first 2 periods against the Hurricanes and hold on to a victory there in that one. So it's just like what version of that Sabres team shows up. And that's why I feel pretty comfortable getting to a lot of Pittsburgh Penguins tonight, because if that stinky 6-2 team shows up that like they did against the Kraken, then the Penguins are going to just absolutely run all over them. But in the same breath, if that really good Sabres team shows up with Nedeljkovic between the pipes, there's going to be a lot to like about this Sabres side of things tonight. The matchups are really good, kind of gets better as you go down the lineup. We got Ryan McLeod coming off a hat trick. He was also bumped up to the top line in that game, and then he practiced on that top line yesterday. So now you've got Zucker, McLeod, and Thompson together on the top line. You've got Paterka, Cousins, and Alex Tuck on the second line, and then Benson, Krebs, Quinn on the third line. So the third line draws the best matchup, but then similar to kind of the matchups, the underlying metrics kind of get worse the further you go down the lineup. Pretty poor offensive metrics, all things considered, from the Buffalo Sabres, but they've been able to convert at a really, really high clip. Ryan McLeod, obviously coming off a hat trick, he's interesting at just $3K, playing on that top line. Really keeps the ownership, or not the ownership, the salary down on that top line. Just $14,900 to full stack them. They're drawing a healthy 26.8% ownership. The Sabres second line as well, 28.7. So a lot of ownership coming in on this Penguins top line and the Sabres top six. The Sabres top six is just so cheap. It's so easy to build around. And if we're right, I mean, it's super chalky, but like a game stack here looks super viable as well. So if we're right about this game being higher scoring, the game stack is super, super interesting here. And then if you can just find that like 1% owned defenseman that scores a goal, that could end up being the optimal play tonight. Yeah, like to me, love Buffalo 1, love Buffalo 2. They've got the number 1 power play advantage on the slate tonight as well. 9th best power play over their last 10 games, going up against the 30th ranked PK. Take a look here at the power play unit. Kind of a mix, right? You've got Tage Thompson on that top line with Zucker on that top power play unit. And then you've got Paterka from the second line, Quinn from the third line with Rasmus Dahlin. So really, really like just kind of building around all 3 lines of the Sabres tonight. And then I like the idea of a power play stack tonight, just full stacking this top power play unit and getting kind of pieces of all 3 lines and hoping that the power play has a good night like it looks like they can. So a lot of interest in the Sabres from me tonight. What are you doing with them?
Yeah, I've got interest in the Sabres too. I think for me, it's probably going to be largely in terms of like mini stacks for these guys. Ryan McLeod up there on that top line at 3K, that feels a little bit rough. Obviously, he's coming off the hat trick, but he didn't even take a shot on goal for the third one. So, like, it's a hat trick, but like, is it really a hat trick? It's still a hat trick. Congrats, Ryan McLeod, Oilers legend. Jason Zucker and Tage Thompson have a lot of my interest up there on that top line. I think that's a nice little mini stack to build around. The thing with McLeod, there's not really much of a floor there. Doesn't shoot the puck a whole lot when he's out there on the ice. Second line, I've got some interest in them too, but again, it feels to me like kind of going the mini stack route is kind of the way to go here, because all 3 of these guys are not giving like a huge floor or anything like that as of late. Not much in the way of shot volume. There's still some offense coming, but it is kind of feeling like it's coming more in spurts than in anything consistent. I think for me, I'll probably include JJ Paterka in any of those mini stacks. Obviously, you get the power play 1 correlation there. And the fact is that he's got 2.3 assists per hour over his last 20 games. So he's kind of been the setup man as of late. Dylan Cousins and Alex Tuck have kind of been the shooters on that line. The third line, I don't mind this spot at all, actually. And I think I'm comfortable getting down here to some Jack Quinn. Obviously, another guy who's going to be up there on power play 1, 2 goals per hour over his last 20 games, 3.4 points per hour. Not shooting much. He's obviously on a huge shooting percentage heater, 29% shooting over his last 20 versus 12.5 on the season as a whole. But the thing is that they're pretty low owned here down on this third line, right? He's only projecting for 17% ownership. That's the lowest of any of the top 6 or any players in the top 6. And Zach Benson too, he's only seeing 10% ownership. If Benson can kind of find a way to get on the board here tonight at 3K, he'll probably be able to pay off that salary tonight. So I don't mind getting to this Sabres side whatsoever either. Again, it does feel like a higher scoring game. It's worth noting that these 2 teams have met once before already this season. Back on October 16th, it was a little 4-game slate. The Penguins won 6-5 in overtime. Evgeny Malkin, a goal and 3 assists for 4 points. Sidney Crosby, a goal and 3 points. Drew O'Connor, Brian Rust each had 2 points. And the offense was pretty spread around from the Buffalo Sabres in that game too. So Byron, Paterka, Tuck, Zucker all had 2 points. Paterka, 2 goals on that game. So it kind of feels like that might be what we see again here, where you kind of might need to grab bits and pieces from a couple of different lines to really capitalize on what could be a really wide open game.
Yeah, getting reasonable floors out of the bottom, that third line as well. Benson and Quinn have been pretty decent as of late. I mean, not a crazy good floor, but you're still kind of hovering around 1.5, 2 shots per game as of late. They grade out okay. amongst the rest of the Buffalo Sabres. JJ Peterka, we talked about the lack of goal scoring. The shot volume is creeping back up close to 2.5 shots per game, which you love to see from him. So, yeah, this is an interesting one in a game, like you said, that 6-5 potential is certainly there. We've already seen it come to fruition this season. I don't necessarily see that same kind of high upside ceiling in the Vegas Carolina game. So a lot of exposure to be had here in and amongst this Pittsburgh and Buffalo lineup. Again, if you want to take another quick look at the matchups here, pretty good matchup for Buffalo 1, but a much better matchup for Buffalo 2 and Buffalo 3. The Malkin line draws a pretty good matchup tonight as well. Carolina giving out beer sticks is an awful idea. The ice will be littered with beer sticks. Hey, if they get blown out by Vegas, it could happen. I wish these games were staggered so I could watch both. Yeah, this is a good night to have two TVs going for sure. It's really unfortunate. Like when you have two games on the schedule, like why are we not putting one at 7:30? I've never understood the idea there, but I hope whoever suggested the Panarin one-off yesterday took him. I played a lot of Panarin yesterday, and he basically saved my night. I loved New York won last night. They looked terrific. Okay, let's get to some of the defensemen tonight. A little bit surprised, I guess. Bowen Byram. I mean, I don't mind Bowen Byram tonight. I just feel like he never has much of a floor. But he projects to be the second highest owned defenseman on the slate tonight. Just trying to pull up here some of my numbers in terms of the best defenseman as of late. So some of the best cheap defensemen: Brent Burns 4,500, Noah Hannafin 4,300, Dmitry Orlov 3K, Jakub Slavin 3,400, and then Bowen Byram comes in about fifth in terms of guys under $4,500. But the two best defensemen as of late, Rasmus Dahlin and Erik Karlsson, they grade out as the two best defensemen on tonight's slate as well. On a slate like this, basically, like the way I like to do it is obviously try to correlate as best you can, but I don't mind playing some of these chalky forwards and using the defenseman as my leverage and trying to find that right 1% owned defenseman that either hits the shot block bonus or picks up an assist and 9 DraftKings points at $2,600. Like those are the type of guys that I think that can help you win this slate. I don't mind eating some chalk up front if I can find that right cheap and low owned defenseman. So for me tonight, guys that kind of fit that bill. Somebody like Nicholas Hag, I think, has got a reasonable enough floor at $2,500. Like he kind of either puts up a donut or has a pretty decent game. So on a 2-game slate, I'm willing to take that chance. Just 1.8% projected ownership. I don't mind taking a swing there. Like he would be a guy that I lean on. Jalen Chatfield kind of feels similar as well. You can take a look at some of these cheap Buffalo defensemen. If it's going to be a higher event game, could have a guy like Matthias Samuelsson, Connor Clifton potentially hit that shot block bonus. So those are the guys that I'm going to kind of lean on to get different tonight. If I'm, especially in lineups where I know, like if you're playing Buffalo 2 and Pittsburgh 1 together, I mean, the ownership, everyone's doing that, right? They're both 30% projected ownership. So you got to try to find some way to differentiate your lineup, and going dumpster diving on the blue line is one way that I like to do it. Zach, anybody really sticking out to you on the blue line tonight?
Yeah, I think we're pretty much looking in that sub 3,400 range. So basically anybody below Jacob Slavin, right? So a couple of names that jump out in terms of value: Dmitry Orlov and Braden McNabb. I think Braden McNabb is a nice play. He's a little on the higher own side at 9.9%, but he blocks a ton of shots, 6 blocks per hour over his last 20 games. I think the one guy that's kind of jumping out to me here is Sean Walker at $2,800, projecting for 4.2% ownership tonight. Over his last 20 games, 6.4 shots on goal per hour of ice time and 4.7 blocks per hour. One statistic that I kind of look at is just combining the raw numbers of shots on goal and block shots per hour to help give a bit of an idea of a floor. You combine those numbers, that's 11.2. And that is the second highest on the slate behind only Brent Burns. So he's doing a lot of the peripheral things right now in the limited ice time that he is getting. And that ice time is kind of baked into his salary at $2,800. So I think he might be my favorite real cheap defensive play here on this slate tonight. But I think there's a couple of decent options down there for sure.
Yeah, I just mentioned Matthias Samuelsson. He's hit the block bonus in back-to-back games as well. And a guy that can, hover around 19 minutes, 20 minutes, can get up north of 20 minutes at that price tag, that ownership. He hits the shot block bonus again tonight. Could definitely be somebody in the optimal lineup tonight. Between the pipes, again, a 2-game slate, very difficult. You just kind of try to avoid the goalies that you're stacking against. So to me, Aiden Hill, he projects for the highest ownership. This feels very similar to the Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen play of the other night. Probably going to see the most volume on the slate, but this feels a little bit different than the UPL play because, one, I think Vegas, even though Buffalo won that game, I feel like Vegas has a better chance of winning than Buffalo did entering that game. I also think that Aiden Hill is a better goalie. He's been unbelievable as of late. So if he continues his strong play, there's no reason for him not to have a good night tonight at $7,400. Easily my favorite goalie play of the night. My least favorite goalie play is Nedeljkovic, so I'll probably have a lot of Hill and a lot of Kochetkov in games, and those would be my two favorites, and then UPL, Nedeljkovic. Any difference from you?
No, not really. I think it's just going to kind of depend on who I'm playing. I've got Kochetkov in my DFO head-to-head lineup here tonight, so I suppose he might be my favorite play. 2 career games against the Vegas Golden Knights, 2 wins, 2.5 goals against average, and a .923 save percentage. He's got the best numbers against any of the opposition here on this slate. Aiden Hill has really struggled against Carolina. 1 win in 5 games played, 3.2 goals against average, 8.84 save percentage. Nedeljkovic, moderate results against the Sabres. 4 wins in 7 games, 902 save percentage. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, despite not getting a lot of wins, just 2 in 5 games, still stopping a lot of pucks, 919 save percentage in those 5 games. So I think for me, it's just going to kind of depend on who I'm building in my lineups. And again, similar to the other night too, like, don't mind having to have one player going up against your goaltender there. That's a way to kind of get yourself a little bit different. Best way to probably do that is through a cheaper punt style of defenseman.
One other note on Aiden Hill, definitely been a lot better on home ice this season than on the road. 912 save percentage at home, 893 save percentage on the road. Let's talk about our hat trick picks tonight. If you want to participate in today's hat trick pick challenge, maybe we'll get another hat trick tonight. Maybe Ryan McLeod again. We'll give you a $25 gift card to nationgear.ca. So maybe you win the $50 draw and get a hat trick pick. We'll get you $75 to nationgear.ca. You can definitely pick up some DFO swag. So yeah, keep an eye on, or keep in mind who you want to pick for your hat trick pick. You can drop it in the comment section of the video on YouTube after the show. And before we get to that, let's get to today's daily face-off head-to-head, in which I believe I forgot to put together, which I did. Where did it go? Stand by. Okay, Zach, why don't you give me your hat trick pick, I guess, now while you kill some time for me here.
Okay, sounds great. I have no problem doing that. I'm going to go a little off the board here, I suppose. Let's go with Jack Eichel. Let's just say Jack Eichel breaks Jordan Staal tonight, finds a way to get a hattie. It is worth noting that in Eichel's career against Carolina, 10 goals and 15 points in 17 games. So he's still finding ways to generate offense and be productive, averaging 12.6 DraftKings points per game, not counting for any of the bonuses. Get a little different with it.
I'm going to go with JJ Peterka. Was a huge Peterka fan coming into the season, had him in a lot of season-long leagues. He's been a little bit disappointed in the goal department so far this season, but the shot volume starting to perk up a little bit. He's probably going to have to go 3 for 3 tonight, like Ryan McLeod did the other night. But yes, I'm going to go with JJ Peterka for my hat trick pick, and we killed just enough time for me to build the lineup card, which again is missing. Real professional show here. Here we go. Here's today's head-to-head. Zach, you won yesterday's, bringing it to nearly 500 on the season, 27 and 28 for you. So you can take it away first.
Yeah, looks like we got some pretty different lineups here tonight, eh? So for me, going with that Pittsburgh one full stack, they look like they're in just too good of a spot to pass up on the slate here. Wanted to get a little Carolina 3 in there, so we got the Jordan Staal, Jordan Martinook mini stack, and then a little Buffalo power play 1 correlation with a Jack Quinn one off, Rasmus Dahlin, and then Bowen Byram coming in on the defense at $3,600, Kochetkov in the crease. It is worth noting that this lineup as a whole is actually leaving $600 on the table, which is kind of one way that you can get yourself different on this slate, is just being comfortable leaving some of that extra money on the table. It does have a high number for its total ownership, projecting for 198%, but you got Jordan Staal in there, who's only 8% owned, and hopefully this is one that's not duped for me tonight, so don't steal it, anybody.
So I went with Dylan Cousins, JJ Peterka mini stack. I went with the full Vegas 2 stack with Hurdle, Dorofeev, and Victor Olofsson. Left me enough for a one-off of Sidney Crosby. Kind of paired him with Erik Karlsson. They don't correlate on the power play, but they correlate very nicely at 5v5. Karlsson's obviously feels like a much better play than Matt Grzelcyk, who is a fine defensive option tonight on a 2-game slate, but just leaves you wanting more often than not, but does still have that correlation on top power play unit. Is cheap. I do like Grzelcyk, but maybe not for this cash head-to-head game. And then I had Shea Theodore on the blue line, who obviously correlates with Hurdle and Dorofeev on the top power play unit, and then Aiden Hill between the pipes. So Vegas comes out with a win tonight. I'm looking pretty good in the DFO head-to-head. Okay, so that is going to do it for the show. Let's get over to our draw tonight. So if you had dropped a comment in the live chat, which we had 13 different people drop a comment, you've got basically an 8% chance of winning a $50 gift card to nationgear.ca. You can pick up some DFO swag. If you are our winner, please reach out to me on X if you could, at Brock_Seguin or at DFO Fantasy. If you're not on X, try to join the DFO DFS Discord, and I can hook you up with it there. So let's get to it. $50 gift card to nationgear.ca, and our winner is CFL Fan. Congratulations on your $50 gift card to nationgear.ca. If you aren't aware, we're going to be doing this giveaway every single Friday for the remainder of the season. Might try to change the prizes up a little bit as well as we go, but yes, congratulations, CFL Fan, on the $50 gift card to nationgear.ca. Hopefully we can see you rocking a DFO hat or hoodie in the near future. Okay, so that's going to do it for this edition and this week of the DFO DFS report. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Shout out to our friends at rotogrinders.com for providing projected ownership for today's show. If you want to get $20 off your first month of RotoGrinders NHL Premium, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of the video on YouTube. Also in the description of the video is our link to join the DFO DFS Discord. That community is growing by the day. We're in there chatting DFS all day long, also dropping all of the late breaking news, the lineup changes today. That'll all be at 6:30 p.m. Eastern with the warm-ups at the same time, so you don't have any holes in your lineup. And while you're there, please smash that like button on YouTube. Really helps us grow this channel, helps us grow this show, and allows us to continue to do this stuff for free. Over 1,000 live viewers at the moment, so please, if you could if you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button for us. So thank you guys so much. Have a great night tonight, a safe and fun weekend. Go Detroit Lions. Let's go, baby. Going to the NFC Championship. Here we go. Enjoy the rest of your day. Until then, cheers.
Cheers.